to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. My name is Tom Dutta. I am the Quiet Warrior, and I'm excited to have the time with you today for this solo cast. I've been doing solo casts now, and this is a very special one. I'm coming off the heels of my first TEDx talk. It was February 29th, 2020, and it was at the Bell Center for the Performing Arts in Surrey, British Columbia, and what an incredible day it was. For all of you who were there, thank you. For all of you who watched the live stream of it, and I had people, I was told, watching around the world, thank you. To my family and all my friends, today I want to take you backstage and actually to the hours and moments leading up to this event. Why did you do it? They asked me. And let me start there. Why does anybody do a TED Talk? Well, I can tell you that many people want to do a TED Talk. Many people say things like, it's on my bucket list. But the difference between knowing and doing is just scheduling time and doing it. The thing about a TED Talk is if you have an idea worth spreading, an idea that can inspire and motivate people, and you have that in you, I can tell you right now that everyone listening to me has that one single idea, then this is the platform that can launch you onto a global stage. Now, I'm excited to say that even while I was preparing for my TED Talk, I've had a contact from a director of an organization that wants me to speak in New York City this October. Now, we haven't finalized that yet, but just small things like doing the TED Talk, putting in the work can launch you in a way that you can't see. It's not about fame. It's not about fortune. It's not about arrogance or ego. In fact, if you want to get on a TED stage and do a talk, they won't have you on there if you show up and talk about yourself and your ego. It's not to sell from the stage your book or all the things you do. It's not to brag about the kind of car you drive or your lifestyle. It's none of that. You have to plant an idea in the minds of the audience and very quickly get them to not only like you, but follow you in some form of action when you're finished. When I was preparing my TED Talk topic, those of you now who know it, is how leaders can lift the stigma of mental health. I submitted my TED Talk in the category of headlines. When you apply for a TED Talk, there's several categories. And the headlines, if you Google the word mental health and leadership, there's thousands and thousands of headlines and articles. It just so happens that that's my talk. That's where I submitted it. And I was shortlisted and accepted. Now, hundreds of people apply for TED Talks. And sadly, only so many can do the TED Talk because the stage and the event is only so long. But I'm going to say this, that never give up. That's my first secret, is never give up when you're trying to do something like this. It's very easy to get knocked off the path and fall down, get discouraged. Many of you might have heard my TED or my podcast that I did a while ago as I started this project some 6 to 8 months ago, when I said the journey to that point was me actually not being successful applying for my first TED Talk experience. Well, let me just go back there and then we'll get into revealing all the nitty-gritty of the day before and the day of. Now, I hope you stay a while because I'm not keeping the clock on this interview. I'm actually, as I am, unscripted and it's not going to be edited. And some might say, Tommy, you're rambling. Well, deal with it because that's literally what I'm doing here off the top of my head. Back a couple of years ago, I applied at TEDx White Rock, which morphed into TEDx Bear Creek Park. And as the organizer said, they will be applying again for the next year's license to do this event again. And it's a legacy that will grow and grow, and I'll stay involved with it. But when TEDx White Rock morphed into TEDx Bear Creek Park, I applied for that, and it was only 100 person audience. When you set up a TEDx talk, the organizer has to apply for the license from TED, which is the big New York TED organization. And people ask, what's the difference between TED and TEDx? The talks are all consistent. The criteria, the caliber, the rules, the guidelines, the experience that we want to give the audience, it's no different than if you're at TED. But TED has a global event that occurs if you don't know this, in Vancouver every year. And people from around the world come to speak at that. It's $10,000 US, I hear, to even get into that. It's 5 days, 90 speakers, absolutely incredible. That's the big TED event. But TED, as you might know, there's over 1 billion hits a year watching TED Talks on YouTube. And so the founder, CEO of TED 10 years ago said, we want to take this globally, let's scale it. So they started issuing independent licenses to open up stages. No difference than if you have a theater company in your city and they operate multiple stages under their brand. So this is TEDx, but it's really an independently organized event. So more on that later. But when I applied at White Rock, I was shortlisted. I believe there was a couple hundred applications. I was shortlisted to 25, which is what the process generally is here. And I went in and did my audition. It was actually the week of my dad's funeral. My dad had passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. Now, you just imagine if you're doing a TED Talk, you've been planning and we're working for weeks or months just to get your idea together. You go to audition, and the day of the audition that I was scheduled was the day of my dad's funeral. Well, my family being who they are and me being who I am, I never give up. And my dad, I remember praying to God and saying, Dad, I got to do this. So family actually moved the day of the funeral. And it was crazy. So I went and did my audition, and I was, quite frankly, just a basket case in my head, and I didn't make the cut. And I was so disappointed and actually upset. And I remember looking up at heaven and saying, Dad, I'm sorry. I wanted to get this done to honor you. Big part of my life story. Anyway, I never gave up. So then I had to wait again another year to apply and go through the whole process again. Well, here I am. And that's the journey. There's much, much more to the backstory. But let's talk about the day before now. The day before, let me just say that I had a whole routine, and it started with scheduling my day. I didn't put too much activity into my day. I had a gentleman come over where I live. We used a little meeting room, and I do some coaching for executives. So I scheduled one business meeting that day early in the morning, about 8 o'clock, just to get myself up in the morning and keep my mind focused on other things. So I did that meeting, and then at about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I had Martin Van Noos come over. Now, Martin is my body coach, and people will say, why do you have a body coach? This is a difference between my thinking and maybe others, is that I believe that a public speaker on stage needs to give the best to their audience. And if you want people to follow you and feel they can be like you, I believe you want to show up body, mind, and soul in the best way you can. And, a year or so ago, I was 40 pounds heavier. I've gone on a journey of very much losing weight, getting in shape. I struggled with my weight as a kid, and it's always been, stressing to me. And that's one of my outlets is eating and probably too much glasses of wine. Anyway, Martin comes over, and he's doing a workout routine with me. Now, I started working with Martin a couple months ago. I waited too late, but I realized I wanted to tone up and build some muscle and be able to stand on the stage with my chest out. When you're speaking, you want to speak from your diaphragm, not from your throat. If you're a professional actor, which I believe now I can call myself an actor and a professional speaker because of the training I've had, I never used to understand all this before. But when you're speaking, we tend to speak from our throats. What you want to do is speak from your diaphragm. And so we did a lot of exercises. Martin would work with me for 45 minutes in a big home gym facility here where I am. And he would put me through a routine for 45 minutes that was a mix of light weights. And the weight training he does is with 10 pounds or less. I know it sounds crazy. Like, what is that? And isolating muscles. So we did some of the muscle groups and isolating the muscle before working it, which is a very different approach. And then he said, Tom, we're going to focus on core exercises. I said to him, I want to be not only strong on the stage with my pose and my posture, but I want to have a clear mind. So I said, Martin, whatever you do, you're in my hands. Teach me and train me today so that I can be calm. I said, don't deplete my energy tank. So he went a little easier on me. And the core exercises we did are combinations of planks, if you know what those are. We had a rubber mat that I was down on quite a bit in between the other exercises. We did abdominal work in very different ways. And so the core is what controls or holds everything together, the core of your body, core strength, and it's not just abdominals. If you research core, most people don't spend time strengthening their core, but the core controls everything from getting up and every motion and anything that you do. I was amazed starting to work with Martin a couple months ago at the progress. My body started changing even in a short period of time, and my core, as the next workout came, maybe we met twice a week, and in between I did a day or two of my own, but my strength was increasing dramatically, particularly my core. And I can tell you that as I walked on the stage at TEDx Bear Creek Park, I felt like a very different person. And I remember saying to Martin that one of the things I struggle with is not seeing myself the way others do. I put myself down in my mind. I don't think I look good. And, this is all the self-talk and wiring that comes from just an earlier part of my life that's still in me, but I manage it. And one of the things I said to Martin is when I do a workout, it releases the brain chemicals. The brain chemicals will make you feel happy and calm, but it's mental health. But it also makes me feel good about myself, makes me feel great. Little known fact, a lot of you don't know that when I was a kid and all the trauma was going on in my home, my backstory from my book and what I talk about, that I escaped and I went to the Scott Road Fitness Center down the street from where I lived in close to Delta Surrey border in British Columbia. And, back then it was a bunch of meatheads lifting heavy weights. And I had a bunch of guys who just loved me there. These were these big, strong, huge muscle guys. Back then there was steroids flowing and all sorts of stuff. Hell's Angels were dropping in. And here's little Tommy. And I started working out from age 18. And I really spent a lot of my nights there just to escape from what was going on at home. But I loved it. I had pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger on my bedroom wall. And I actually had a 42-inch chest. I was big. And my wife tells me that one of the things she was attracted to me about was just the muscles I had. And I went, okay, now you can still be attracted to my stretch marks because a lot of those muscles subsided. But in the short time working with my body coach, Martin, and by the way, he's written a book called Boomer Body, and he runs a company like that. He trains people specifically who care about, living long and healthy. This is one of the things that he noticed that I had natural. And he told me this. He said, Tom, when you work out, your muscles have memory. And he said, if you were big or you were fit like that, your muscles will grow and bounce back very, very quickly if you train them properly. And I was like, bring it, man. That's awesome. I thought I had lost those things. What is a muscle? All right. So my body coach, the other thing I did during the day before, and I remember this is, February 28th I'm talking about. So here I finished my workout with Martin. I came up and had a shower, and then I decided to, just do some things to keep myself busy. But what I started noticing is anxiety and stress. My mind was wandering because I really didn't have anything else scheduled for the day. So many of you know, if you don't know, I've been taking a course called Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. It's for people dealing with anxiety, depression. It was recommended to me by my psychiatrist, Dr. Ron Remick, who's a good friend of mine. And many of you know I've spent a decade volunteering in mental health because I want to give back. I never thought my mental health would be challenged until I realized we all, at some point, will if we don't take care of it. And so I learned some CBT skills, cognitive behavioral therapy skills, to calm what's called the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight response when we get stressed, anxious. That the parasympathetic nervous system, you can trigger it by doing some of these skills, and that basically calms you down. And a lot of speakers, you might not know this, have routines before they go on stage. I'll talk about what I did actually in a little while. But one of them, the skills, is a power pose. There's also something called the one breath skill. And I use that one a lot because you can do it pretty much invisibly. Nobody knows. The self-talk that goes on in our other mind, big one, especially if it's negative, it can bring you down even before going on to talk in front of anybody. And then affirmations. So I'll talk a little bit about what I was doing. But the day before, I was doing some of this when I got anxious. I was saying affirmations like, I am good, I am great, I am energy, I am memory, I am professional, I am good looking. I mean, it might sound like this is a love-in club for Tommy, but words matter, and the subconscious mind hears those words, and your brain works this way. You have a trigger, it triggers a thought. The thought then creates an emotion. The emotion then creates a behavior. So I am power. I am, energy. I am memory. That's the thought. The emotion that comes from that is always going to be positive, and then the behavior that comes from that is always going to be a good outcome. You see what I'm saying? If I started having self-talk that I'm nervous, I don't look good, and all these things, the emotions created will be negative, and the behavior coming out of that will actually derail me. Now, I want you all to know that you can use this in your life. It doesn't have to be just for a public talk. This is really important, but most of us know we live in a negative reality, and we just have to practice good cognitive behavioral skills to stay mentally healthy. All right. So let's talk about diet. One of the things I met one of my speakers, Peter, and he said, it was after he did his talk actually on February 29th, he was just ravenous. And he said, let's, at the break, a lunch break at the event, it was so well organized with bag lunches for everybody. He and I walked together to get our lunch, and he was like a wolf, no pun intended, because there was a wolf in my talk. But he was shoving the sandwich in, and he said, I haven't eaten since Thursday. And of course, we were Saturday. And I said, what? He says, I can't eat before I talk. Now, I don't recommend that for anyone, and it works for him. But the thing you need to realize when you do a talk is I was fortunate to be the second on the slate. I mean, I'm just so blessed how that happened. I don't know, but I guess, God brought it to me, and I'm grateful. But there are many speakers here, if you went, who had to wait till 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon to speak. And so you're processing all day, all this stress and emotion. You try to keep your energy up. Here's the thing about diet is, for my whole life, I've taught nutrition, and I believed in holistic health, that every 4 hours your blood sugar drops. And when your blood sugar drops, energy drops. Brain needs food. It needs healthy, fatty acids and healthy fats and things to function and memory. So I did a lot of effort on my diet the day before my TED Talk. So I kept it very clean. And I remember saying to Martin when we were working out that morning at 10 o'clock, I said, what should my pregame day dinner be? I said, he looks at me funny, and he says, what do you mean? I said, well, athletes, when they go play football, some of them will have big steak or pasta or protein, whatever. He said, carbs. And I was surprised. Like, carbs? Because carbs make you sleepy. But he said, but healthy carbs. And so he said things like yams, etc. So my pre-TED Talk night meal, and I cooked dinner for Anna and I'm the home chef here. I basically roasted orange flesh yams. I put some cayenne pepper in there, like a little spice, a little bit of butter because it's a good taste, not a lot. I bought a bag of broccoli florets, and I literally steamed them and dressed it with some chili flakes because, again, I like my spice. And I'm thinking, why would you do that? You're going to burn up your throat. And it's like, I don't care. I like it. But my broccoli, I put some olive oil and red wine vinegar. I mixed it and dressed it. And then a chicken breast, a healthy baked chicken breast, remove the skin. That was to some of you saying, what the heck, what a boring meal. That was my pregame day meal. And by the way, Anna and I eat that way for the most part. We have treats, but we eat very clean. It's why I can stay healthy. And let's face it, we all have bloodlines, and the South Asian culture has higher risk for heart disease. My dad died of a heart attack, had type 2 diabetes, never really looked after his diet. So I digress. But my pregame day dinner, but throughout the day, I snacked on almonds, and I focused on hydration, lots and lots of water. Now, I don't know if you know this, but this is scientifically true. The water you put in your body today will absorb into your trillion cells that you have within 1 to 2 days. So we need to hydrate, and the center in the brain that controls hunger is right beside the center that controls thirst. So sometimes we tend to eat a lot, but it may be that we're dehydrated. I know this is a family-rated show, but if you want to know if you're hydrated when you urinate, if it's yellow or dark color, you are dehydrated. So you got to get some water into you. And hydration is not coffee, which is a diuretic and takes moisture out. You want to hydrate with water. It's the gift of the planet. In Vancouver here where I live, we have the healthiest water on the planet. I don't have to go buy it, but hydrate. So I bought myself a 2-liter reusable bottle, and I fill it up for weeks prior to my TED Talk, and on this day before, I fill it up in the morning, and I tell myself I'm going to drink it all by the end of the day. So it's 2 liters of water in my body, stay hydrated. Obviously, a few more trips to the bathroom, which doesn't help, but the byproduct is you're hydrated, which affects everything. All right, let's talk about my getting through the day. We had dinner, around 5 o'clock. You want to watch what's called the circadian rhythm. So sleep. You may not know this, but when you darken a room, if you shut all your curtains, even in the middle of the day, your brain says it's time to go to sleep. So we have natural circadian rhythms built in to us, to our brains for sleep. So I set my sleep for about 9 o'clock. My logic for my pre-game day TED Talk was at least 8 hours. There's a really good book that's out called Why We Sleep. I'm listening on audiobook to it, and I recommend it to a lot of people. And it's actually a book that Bill Gates told me to read. Well, he didn't tell me, although, I can say that, I guess, and say, well, Bill Gates and I know each other. But he actually posted it on LinkedIn, which I have a connection there. And he said when he was building Microsoft and the company was going crazy, and at the point in his career, he was told to read that book. And I read it, by the way, and it changed my life about how I understand sleep. You need to get at least 8 hours. And if you're not, well, you got to get over it, because the scientists who wrote the book said that we're the only species who sleep deprive ourselves, and yet we cut years off our life by that. Well, we know when you go out on stage to do any kind of public speaking, you need to have strong energy. And if you're tired, your short-term memory of your brain doesn't work very well. And so you want to make sure that sleep. So I went to bed at 9 o'clock. My routine when I went to bed was listening to a guided meditation app called Insight Timer. You can download it. It's free. I've been using it for years. I teach it to my clients, my coaching clients. And it's got many, many different tracks. And so there's one called Deep Sleep. It's a guided meditation, 60 minutes. And it literally put me into a deep sleep. Now, I have a Fitbit watch. You're probably thinking like Tom's a little anal here about all this. Well, I am. Get over it. Anna will tell you that. I track everything. And I'm probably right now tracking the number of words I'm telling you in my mind somewhere. But I track my sleep on my Fitbit, and it tells me what level of sleep I was in. And I have a chart that I can look at. And the next day when I looked at it, or after the TED Talk, the sleep was very good quality. And I don't know if you know this, but when you get into REM sleep, that's where the dream state is. And dreaming is actually healthy. Dreaming makes a difference. It's in that book if you want to listen to that, Why We Sleep. But there's only points in time where we have that kind of REM state is actually the last hour of sleep before we wake up. And yet how many people set their alarm an hour early just so they think, I'll sleep in a bit. Well, you want to just set your alarm just as you want to get up. The other thing is I've heard from speakers who will go and sleep in a hotel by the venue. I lived 40 minutes away from the Bell Center for Performing Arts. I didn't need to do that. But some people do change up their routine. I didn't, but I did know that I wanted a backup. So I asked a friend of mine, James, to actually call my landline and use that as a wake-up call. I had Anna set her alarm. I had my cell phone. So I had many backups in case there was that dreadful sleeping in, which would have ruined a year's worth of work. A couple other things is the wardrobe. And so when you do any kind of public speaking that's being filmed, the TED Talks are a production stage. As you noticed, if you were there, there's cameras from every angle filming. Now, we had a full day dry run 10 days before at the Bell Center. And I actually wore my blazer jacket that everybody said they loved, and it went with my jeans. And I wore a black tee. And the reason why I put a blazer on is because the backdrop of most stages is a black curtain. And if you wear black on black, you look like a talking head. So we were given all this suggestions. They never told us what to do. TED speakers tend to dress a certain way anyway. And well, I get on the stage and I have this thing, and the video guy connects with me after, and he says, you've got a moire pattern happening. I said, what's a moire pattern? He said, well, what it is, if you don't know about this, is anytime you wear something that has very fine pattern in it, it skews the camera, and the camera actually makes it look bigger. So it really messed up. So I went into panic. These are the behind the scenes things most people don't know, but we walk out on stage looking our best. But leading up to that, you have wardrobe malfunctions. I had a big one. My jacket didn't work. I had to literally run downtown one day, find a jacket. We had trouble finding one without a pattern. I'm there in the men's shop where I shop. I have my friend with me. because I have trouble deciding on things. I've always been like that in terms of shopping. And we're choosing jackets, and they got patterns. So I ended up, if you can just picture, I'm there in this shop. I'm taking photos of jackets, texting it to the IT guy, Trevor, who does all the IT and video production for the TEDx event, hoping he'll get it. I'm sending it to my coach, and then I get these messages back saying, yeah, that one. And Trevor says, that should work, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I talked my wardrobe guy, Mr. Tran, David Tran. He's a young fellow, really great. I talked him into letting me take the clothes without taking the tags off if I could use it for my full dress rehearsal and get clearance that it works properly. They were so nice that they let me take my whole outfit without taking the tags off, and actually, they said, if anything doesn't work, bring it back. We'll get you into something else. So totally amazing. I shout out to David Tran at Harry Rosen, where I buy some of my fine clothes when I need it. The funny thing is that I'm doing my dry run on February 19th at the Bell Center. This is a full dress rehearsal with all speakers, and we ran it pretty much as if it was the day. And one of the organizing leadership team members came up to me and said, "What's that on your jacket? What's that on your sleeve?" And she felt that I forgot to take the tags off. And she said, little things like that will show up in video. I said, "Don't worry." I said, "Here's the story. We're trying this out." Anyway, just small things like that. I just kind of chuckle at. Everybody cared about everybody, but felt like an idiot standing up there with my tags hanging off my jacket. Another small thing, when the night before preparing my wardrobe, they say to prepare your wardrobe days before, which I did. Even if you iron a shirt and you happen to burn it or something happens to it, you want to make sure. So I had my wardrobe pressed and everything ready, put in a bag to protect it from dirt, especially when you have black. And I had that done. And the night before, I just checked that. I made sure everything was in the bag, including my shoes. I had these CEO-type runners. If you saw me on stage, they're black with white trim. Really comfortable, actually. Handmade in Italy, I found out. And I had everything packed away because if you're a good person with details, I'm not. In the morning, I don't function well, so getting everything ready the night before. I had taken 2 sets of clothes in case the coffee spills, or, one of the stories I heard from a friend of mine who speaks is that they lost his luggage. Another one is he set down his wardrobe in a green room and somebody stole it. Can you imagine getting ready to do something like this or any talk, and you turn around and your bag's gone? So I took 2 sets of clothes, and when I went there, I did not wear what I was going to wear. I wore my casual jeans and a sweater. So more on that when we get to the actual day. So the jewelry issue as well. When you do filming, they didn't want us wearing jewelry for 2 reasons. One, it can get in the way of the camera, make it glitter, and number 2, it could actually bump into your mic. There's TED Talks I've seen done, and I've watched them, where ladies have big hoop earrings, and when they turn, the earrings bang into their mic, and you hear this clanking noise. So many details, right? If you're still with me here, I'm rambling, but these are all the small things that were behind the scenes. The day before, what about rehearsal? Well, you might ask me that. What about rehearsal, Tom? This is the part that I struggle with because of my own challenge with anxiety and getting, being worry prone and maybe a perfectionist. My normal self would have said, rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. But the answer is no, don't. You see, we were given a routine that was used by someone who won the number 1 at the World Championships of speaking. And we were given that routine to consider, and I took it. And I think I might have posted a Facebook post video on this. But my routine leading up to this for a couple months was rehearsing 3 days and 1 day off, 3 days, 1 day off. And the rehearsal went like this: 35 minutes. First day, rehearse the opening and closing of the talk. Second day, rehearse the body of the talk between the opening and closing. Third day, do the whole talk, and then rest day. And 35 minutes. And this was a game changer because my voice was getting hoarse. And why did they want us to do this routine, breaking it up? Because you're compartmentalizing the talk. So on demand, you can draw, you can find it easier. So if I snap my fingers, the closing, I know exactly where it was when I said I called a meeting with the general manager of that warehouse because there needs to be a new type of leadership. I recall that exactly. My opening, my car was parked at the side of this long stretch of highway. I'm like a zombie in my navy blue suit and tie, a well-dressed corporate zombie. Snow is crushing beneath my feet. If you're wondering, what are you doing? That was the opening part of my talk. And then the body is the body. So you get the picture. But the day before, I did not rehearse. I only did it once. And here's my logic. One is I had a hoarse throat actually from so much work. I also had a bit of a bug weeks before, and I had some congestion that just never went away. So I had congestion in behind my eyes, and the typical nasal passages and all were a little raw. And so all of this you're thinking about if you're a professional actor or speaker. I have a friend who actually does shows in Las Vegas, and he said to me one day, he said, when I go to Las Vegas, he said I don't he said I don't literally go out. I go back to my room. He said because it's all air conditioned and it's really hot. And he said when that happens, he said my voice literally goes on me. And I went, wow, I had no idea that performers, they deal with that, and air conditioning can dehydrate you. So it's very interesting to the day before to preserve my voice and not rehearse when my brain was saying rehearse, or you're going to forget your talk. So it's counterintuitive, but that's what I did, not too much. The other thing I did leading up to the event, which I recommend to anybody, if you're speaking anywhere, go and get acclimated to the actual venue. There's nothing like walking into a 1,000-seat auditorium full of people and the shock of it when you walk on stage if you haven't seen it, if you haven't visualized it. Now, our athletes use visualization to visualize things. I remember reading Tiger Woods' book, and he said he visualizes the ball going into the cup. He doesn't visualize the crowds and the water on the left and the birds above. None of that. And so remember, if you have a thought, attach an emotion to it, and then a behavior comes out of it. I'm visualizing standing on that stage looking out, and I can see it in my mind even the days before. Well, how did I do that? Well, we found out and we're told that at Bell Center, there's a church service on Sundays. So I went with Anna a few times to the church service. One of them was to honor my dad's date of death, which was nice. And there, the crowds were, maybe the auditorium was half full. So it was good enough energy with the lights going for the production. They had a band to know what it was like. And so being on the stage before you perform is vital. And with a TEDx talk, they tell you where the venue is going to be and you should get access. It really does help. It prepared me big time for no shock. The other thing we did was make sure the walkways to the green rooms and how you're going to get to the stage, your brain knows that path. It's very easy. Walking up some of these big venues, imagine some of the big theaters or even the arenas in your town. If you're a performer, if you haven't walked that last mile and you get lost, you take a wrong turn and they introduce you and you don't show up. So you might want to think about that sometimes when we're watching shows and you see they introduce a speaker or somebody and it's a delayed entry. Well, probably because they walked into a wrong door, maybe into the men's room when they shouldn't. I don't know. All right. So we're still rolling here. I'm trying to just get you into the insane world of what it's like the day before. So I'm now into the day of the event. I'm up at 6 o'clock. The alarm goes off. I actually woke up feeling good. I was bright-eyed. I felt good energy. I wasn't tired or depleted. And by the way, no alcohol for the whole week. I don't drink a lot, but we have a glass of wine once in a while. Purposely none because it dehydrates. It also messes with your brain's ability to perform. And yet I know people who will drink the night before they go out and do talks or even business meetings. No, you don't want to do that. When I got up at 6 o'clock, I had what's called a metabolic shake. So I have a meal replacement shake. It's actually well balanced. It's natural based, but it's something I've been using for 10 years. So I know my body knows it. It gives me good energy and it keeps you full for 2-3 hours. I chose that as my game day meal because any other food can cause indigestion or gas and things like that. And you just don't want that, especially if you're going on stage to speak, the odd burp, unless it's part of your routine. So I felt refreshed, but I started feeling anxiety very much in the morning and tried using my one breath skill and some of the affirmations, continue to focus on that. They say groom yourself and be ready for guys, stubble and all that. So my morning started like most people with a quick shower. And I remember saying to myself, if I cut myself, that's going to be an issue. I'm sure they can fix that. So I purposely used hot towel to open my pores, shaved, cold water to close them. I just a little bit extra care. Now I've been using a skincare regimen. I've been talking about that. Your skin's your biggest organ on your body, yet we don't care for it. One of the coolest things is when you are videotaped for something like this, it's on the internet, on TED forever. and you use it as a speaker reel if you're trying to get speaking work. And there's so many speakers who don't care for their skin. They've got blotchy eyes and craters and things. I started a skin regimen. A couple ladies who run a company in the U.S. called C2 California Clean Skincare, and I'd interviewed them on my radio show. And a shout out in particular to Clarissa, who actually became my virtual skin product person, and the other person that's dear to my heart, is Christina Flack, who was on my radio show before as well. She's in California and runs a makeup company, Pretty Girl Makeup. And these are wonderful people that I'd met just through my radio show. And so I reached out months leading up to this, and I said, I want to care for my skin. I want to show up with looking as good on the outside as I feel inside. So I started, she said, hydration, vitamin C, and then go get a facial, and then start using a skin regimen, moisturizer, cleanser, because before I would just using soap and things, plug up your pores. So why am I being anal about this one? Well, because it was fun. For a guy using skincare products, my skin started changing dramatically and was healthy and glowing and hydrated. I tend to work sometimes where it's in a cold zone, so this was important. My skin was really in bad shape months ago. So when I arrived on my game day in the morning, looking in the mirror, I liked what I saw, and that built up my confidence. Now, does everybody use skincare products and do things? No. Will I for the rest of my life? Of course. It's not a lot of extra work. There's also something called a neti pot. My wife gave me this as a gift a long time ago. You might think this is a little odd, but it's a little pot. It looks like a teapot. You put warm water in it, and then there's a special Himalayan type salt. Put that in it, mix it up, and you literally stick it in one of your nostrils and tilt your head sideways, and it flushes out your nasal passage, and then you do the same on the other side. And it's an amazing thing. There's no power or anything. Just make sure you clean it up. But what it does is it flushes out congestion, and after doing it, everything just feels like it's open. And so I did that the night before, and now on game day, I did it in the morning. And the other thing I was struggling with is a little bit of congestion in my chest. So my speaking coach gave me a tip. She said, go find at Shoppers Drug Mart, she said, that's the only place I can find it. It's called Ninjom, Ninjom. And it's actually an herbal thing. It looks like thick honey, and it's in a bottle, and it's made in China of medicinal herbs. And it's almost used as if it's like an expectorant, but it actually coats and keeps everything in place if you got congestion, so you don't start coughing in the middle of talking. If you are doing speaking or in business, I recommend getting a bottle of it and try it. Ninjom. I will now always use it. So I took my Ninjom after I had my shake. Of course, did all my grooming, brushing teeth. You want to make sure you're ready, especially on camera. And a couple days prior, I had my eyebrows done. I know it's a guy thing. They don't do it. But I had my eyebrows threaded and then colored, because as I get older, the grays make me look a lot older. And what a difference having properly groomed eyebrows. A lot of speakers, they don't take the time for that. I even cut my nails and groom that, because when your hands are moving, if you zoom in on a video, sometimes the worst thing you can find is somebody who just has long nails or dirty nails. It just doesn't add to, I want to present myself as a speaker who believes in self-care. So there you go. Probably didn't want to know all that, but deal with it because I told it to you. So all this is the morning. I had 45 minutes from when I got up to get out the door. So after grooming and then putting on my casual clothes, the night before I'd put all my clothes hanging at the front door in my bag, and the shoes were in my suit bag. I grabbed it. I also grabbed my knapsack, which I put on my back, and in that I had a hairbrush and some product for my hair to keep it down, because it sometimes gets a little dry. And my Bible, I take my Bible everywhere, and I had my Bible and my cue card, my cards with my talk on it were stuck in my Bible, where I've kept it since I wrote it. God's a big part of my life, and a few other little things, including a bag with a freezer pack and another shaker cup with some water and another metabolic shake. And that was my thinking on that one. Was by the time I get on stage, which was going to be 9:40 was my time, I ate at 6 o'clock. If you remember, all of a sudden my blood sugar's dropping and I'm going to be weak. So I took that to actually have before I went on stage, so that my energy would be high. Now, these are all small, minor details, but in the big picture, it's how you deliver a talk as a professional trained speaker. You think about the holistic stuff, not just talking. All right, so 6:45. I'm in the car now. I'm in the car and I'm driving. And what did I do in the car? My self-talk started going on. So I started using my affirmations again. You are good. You are great. You are energy. You are memory. And then I've never really talked about this openly before much on my show because it's a show I tend to keep to interviews and other things. But I had a chat with Jesus. Christ is in my life. I believe in that power of my faith. And I started talking to him, and I said to him, I said, please give me the grace to walk out on that stage. And I said, I'm fighting the fear. And I said, I know the devil's trying to work on my head, but you're there, and give me the grace to remember my talk. For those of you who don't know, it's in my talk. I fell on my head 19 months ago, had a brain injury, and it affected short-term memory, my light sensitivity, eye focus, headaches. I was literally planning my TED Talk with all of this. I also slipped into depression and had to get self-care or care through counselors and things. I mean, it's been a mess, my life, for a while. But all of this, at the day of the talk, I'm on the platform ready to launch Tom and his story to the world. All of this I was fighting through. So I was speaking to Jesus, and I said, I've come this far with you. I said, I trust you. I said, I'm not going to try to work it all out in my mind. I said, now I just leave it to you. I said, I know that you'll carry me. And I literally had my cross. I took it off. I wear a cross and a chain because we can't wear that on the stage. And I put it in my pocket. And as I had it in there, I put my hand in it and just kind of touch it and hold it. Now, this sounds a little bit out there if you don't believe in religion, but I do. And you know what? It helped big time. I even said a prayer, and I said, please bless all my other speakers and give them the grace to have the talk of their lifetime. Bless all the people who are coming, that they come safely. My daughter's live streaming back east. By the way, I went through a major emotional crash the day before because I paid for my daughter to come out from New Brunswick, from university, the other side of the country, and a snow ice storm canceled her flight and they couldn't get her out. She was disappointed, and I called her, and well, turned into a good thing because she saw the live stream with her boyfriend, and she was proud of me. I'm getting a bit emotional. And I wish she was here in the audience, but it was awesome. And you know what? I turned it into a positive. I gave her the refund from the plane ticket and said, here, hopefully this will help you in some way. So even all of that, in the day driving, I had all that going on in my mind. I was talking to Jesus and, asking for everything and telling him, what can I do to serve you on that stage? And I knew that he was putting me on that stage to share a message that will help people like me and like many others. And I'm working through him on that platform to change the world. I'm not doing this for personal gain. Everybody who knows me knows that. And so that was all part of the drive. And I had my GPS on to make sure I didn't go the wrong way, and got to about 7:30, drove up to the backstage. So we were told we could park at backstage lot, and I did. And one of the big things I didn't tell you is that they had a book table there. And if you're an author, you're allowed to bring your books. So me and my friend, James, and a couple nights before, we sat and we packed up 100 books, and I had some inserts. We sat folding it, and we had a nice conversation and time together at my place. And it just really helps if you're doing something that has nerves, is to have somebody walk beside you. And this man, he's a young fella who actually is somebody I know from some work I'm doing, and he became a mentor to me. I mean, he's a 33-year-old guy mentoring me, and he sees me as a mentor too, and we had this great relationship. But we basically sat and we were folding books and getting them ready. So that was all the day before. But one of the things that you don't want to do when you go to a performance is get yourself all sweaty. So I had him take my books, and we met in the back lot at 7:30. So we walked in up the long walkway to the backstage door. The door of the theater was open at 7 o'clock a.m., and the main door's opening at 8. When I got in there, I was blown away what a mess it was. They were setting things up. There was crap everywhere. The stage, there was a shambles. I mean, nothing was put together. And I went, wow, this is really what it's like at a production. It's not the night before for something like this. And so, I basically went straight down to the green room, long stairs, 2 double flights of stairs, and all the doors are labeled, but it's like a maze, and you literally can get lost in one of these type of theaters. So we had done the walks, but it was still a bit nervous. I was walking into places and forgetting where I was. And when we get down to the bottom, the green room was where everybody could hang out There was a TV screen on the wall, and you could literally see the performance as it was happening live. And there was a little tin can speaker, so you had this little sound. But many of us who were ready to go on stage were told to stay in the green room in sets of 4. So me, because I was number 2, me and the other 3 speakers were downstairs until the first break. So we weren't actually in the theater. But what had happened prior was at 8:25, they had a marching band come in on stage, and they just blew the place up. They were incredible. If you watch some of the video, if it's ever available, this was a young high school marching band, very talented, award-winning, and the place was vibrating. I was downstairs in this green room, so many floors below, and you could literally hear the energy, and the crowd, the place filled up to 1,000 people. The crowd was just standing up and going crazy. And I thought, oh my God, it's like a rock concert. Well, that really kicked my butt. My anxiety went to the roof. But they say energy feeds on energy. I was actually feeding on that energy, which was absolutely incredible. At one point, I put my suit bag down and I took out my clothes, and I decided that I would have to get dressed soon, and finding even the washrooms and things, it was kind of crazy. And then other people started coming, other speakers, to bring their gear. So it was like Grand Central Station. Around the back, there were 3 actual dressing rooms. If you can picture a long row of chairs with individual mirrors that are lit up with those lights they have, almost like makeup mirrors. Pretty amazing. It was so bright in that room, but it's what you see when you see movies being produced with people getting you have your little spot. That was my little spot. So typical to my personality, these big rooms, nobody was really in them yet because I was early. I went to the far corner and found my little corner of the world. And that's kind of how I am, I guess, to deal with my anxiety. Sometimes I just wanted to be out of the way. And I dumped all my stuff out. So I took a picture of it for my album, but I had my Bible there and my food and, my talk cards and, just a few things, including my little pack of my hairbrush and whatnot. And I had no idea what do I do here, because it's the first time I was doing something like that. But so many people around were helping us. And one of the things I used to do in the past was I used to get so caught up in myself that I would be not present. But I purposely worked on it, doing my one breath. The one breath skill is where you breathe out through your mouth 7 seconds, and then you breathe in through your nose 5 seconds. It's actually backwards, and it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So I'll just do it right now. It's only once you do it, but you might find if you sit grounded and do it, even in your car, whatever, your shoulders should start dropping, and it literally does in the moment calm you. So I was doing that, and then one of the decisions I made was do not sit down. So from the time I got there, if you can picture now, I'm in the green room, and it's about 7:45. Doors are going to open at 8 o'clock. People are starting to come, and I'm on stage at 9:40. The production starts at 9. There's a band at 8:25. All this going on in my head, and I said to myself, don't sit down. Once you sit down, the energy just stopped. So I kept walking around, and then the makeup lady said, we want you to do your makeup 45 minutes before your talk. So, of course, even calculating that backwards in your head when you've got so much going on, it's like, oh my God, when was that? When should that be? Makeup for me was just some powder, just so you don't get that shine on your head from the lights, especially when they're doing video. But I had everything else in place, so it was great. So we had some fun with that. I actually put on my black T-shirt, which was what I was wearing with my nice new jeans, dark jeans. I put on my shoes, my CEO type runners, black leather with white trim on the bottom. Really, really comfortable and quite casual. A lot of people said they thought it was good on the red dot. And I went and got my makeup done. She put something around me to protect my clothes, and she was just talking to me. And I remember having the thought of going to Hollywood when we did Moving America Forward. It was a TV show I did a couple years ago. They found my book, and Mr. William Shatner produces it, and he wanted to interview me and have me on the show. And they awarded Anna and I something really cool, an entrepreneur award for Moving America Forward with the work I do. It's pretty amazing. If you go to my website, KREAT.ca, you'll find the press release and the actual TV shows there. And that talks about a lot of what I do outside of, my podcast here. Anyway, I had this thought about Moving America Forward, sitting in their chair and getting makeup. And I remember back then, I was tired from traveling, fatigued. I didn't eat properly. I mean, none of the things I was taught through this whole experience preparing the last year for my TED Talk, I knew. And people ask me, what's the difference? Well, I've been trained to be a professional speaker. And even friends of mine after came up and he said, "Oh my God, Tom, you grew, like what you did there." And I'm pretty humble, everybody. I hope you'll watch TED Talk and give me your feedback. But I did grow. I mean, I'm ready for a bigger stage. But all these things I've been rambling about, I hope that if you're doing anything, even if it's just for better life and health, that some of them might help you. So there I am. My makeup's done, and I'm now changed, but I don't put on my jacket. You know, my nice blue jacket blazer. And when it was time to go up to the stage, basically they told us that we would be escorted. So there were volunteers, and my heart goes out to Vindy, who's a lady who, she literally had a clipboard, and she made sure that, you know, we had our water bottles, and we basically were led out of the green room to the right through a door that said backstage or stage left. And on the stage right door, right beside it, it says, "Don't go through here, or the boogeyman will be there." Literally, if you went stage right, you ended up on the wrong side of the stage or out in the lobby. So again, it was so well marked, but we were told that we would be taken up a few minutes before to get our mics on. And so I was in the green room, walking around, doing my exercise, my one breath, keeping calm, trying to control my thoughts. There were other speakers that were having their own thoughts, not always positive, some worrying, some really excited. But everybody was in a different space, so I really focused on Tom. But when somebody needed something, I dropped everything to go help them. And that's one of the differences I found being present and helping people. This is a law of the universe, everyone, that when you help other people, you actually bless them. And when you bless other people, your life will be fulfilled in ways you don't even know. It makes you feel good. So some people were trying to find their way around, and one of the speakers who was coming in from Toronto came, and I gave him a hug, and he said, "I'm finally here." And he was kind of nervous because he was always in Toronto doing the rehearsals by himself. And I just take time for him. And there are a couple young kids who I love them dearly. They're 12 years old or so, and they did a duo, a boy and girl, and they did their talk on the environment. And I went up and high-fived them. Just really being in service. That's who I am. But I found that it killed time. It kept my mind focused. And I believe that if you are grateful or you do things for other people, that God gives you that back. And well, I was just doing all this naturally, but it was part of what was taking the time. Well, as we got close, one of the fellas, really great guy, his name's Guy, and speaker, he did a talk on safe supply and dealing with the opioid crisis. This guy's amazing. He's a friend of mine. He said, "Tom, hydrate." And I'd forgotten. So picking up my water, and then of course thinking, okay, do I go to the bathroom and pee now, or do I go on stage and have to? I mean, all these stupid things, but we're hydrating. You might not know this, but your lips can dry out fast when you're talking. And if that happens, it becomes a problem. You're licking them, looking for moisture. Your throat dries. You can start coughing. It's one of the biggest fears when I started rehearsing over the months. I was coughing like crazy, having fits because I was dry mouth. It's a couple of tricks. If you do speak, get a tube of Vaseline, put it on your lips. You'll never have the dry lip. And I kidded with Peter Scott, who was the first speaker before me, who said he had Vaseline. He taught me that. And I said, well, when I saw him on the day, I said, "Can I borrow that?" And I told him, I said, if I got to know you better, I'd probably slip back into your pocket a tube of crazy glue. And he didn't get it right away. He's an English guy. And then he looked at me funny. It's like, "Oh, yeah." Well, I'm just kidding. But anyway, so hydration is important. When you go on stage, a lot of speakers have a podium with a bottle of water. No, when you're a professional speaker, you hydrate before. And you just go with it. And you trust that you're going to be fine. But hydrating starts days before. All right, so, getting ready. Now Vindy says, "Tom, I think we should go." Now my nerves are starting to warm up. My body's starting to get tingly. I'm starting to feel that emotion. We start the long walk out of the green room, down the hall to the right. We see the two doors, the one that says stage left. I go up 2 flights of stairs. I'm now turning left, and I come to the vast, if you've ever been to the back of a theater, especially where they do plays and things, you see the vast backstage where all the rigging is, and it's dark and it's eerie. I walked onto that backstage, and all you see is the backdrop, the curtain, and you see all the gear and the technology behind the stage, and it's a wide open space, lots of room. But what you hear on the other side, what I heard was 1,000 people listening in silence and then sometimes a bit of applause. I heard Peter, the first speaker, speaking. I heard everything, and it became real. And I was fighting right at that moment, all the emotions. I can't explain it. But I started getting this feeling of greatness, of excitement, of I'm here, I did it, I made it to this point. And I can tell you that when you feed off energy and you keep your mind positive thinking and you say, I've arrived, I belong here, I deserve to be here, I am great, I'm going to deliver the talk of my lifetime, you really step into that greatness. And for all of you out there who struggle with doing things in your life because maybe you don't think that way about yourself, our thoughts and our emotions and our behavior are all connected. Just believe in yourself. Never give up in yourself. You can do a TED Talk. You can do anything you want, whatever it is, if you believe in yourself and if you never give up. So right to that day, I was preparing myself for years for that moment. And there it was. And it felt great. It felt like I'd been here before. Well, I'm standing there and now they put my mic on, so I had to take my jacket off. So, of course, I'm getting worried like myself about, if I put it back on, is my t-shirt now crooked? And the ladies behind stage were helping us with all our gear. It was great. One thing you want to do is make sure when you put on your mic, if you're wearing one of those head mics, that you move your head back and forth and up and down to make sure that nothing catches on it. I've seen a case where a speaker had it so tight that when he moved it actually popped out of place. I'm talking about one of those little mics that sort of is a wire that hangs around by your cheek and you're speaking. Well, it's really wrapped around your head by a harness. And the other thing is they put a battery pack, or the little pack where it turns on and off. They either put in your pocket or on your belt. So for ladies, it might be clipped on a belt, or they might have a pocket. I have a friend in the United States, actually, a really good guy who's actually the publisher with my New York-based publisher, Morgan James. And he said that one day he was on stage and he was just doing something, a narrative, talking at a public talk, and he unbuckled his belt and he pulled it off as if to, explain a funny story. And he said the battery pack of his mic flew off and the batteries came out and it was a disaster. Well, anyway, they clipped it on my belt. I got the jacket back on and there I was. The whole time I was standing backstage, by the way, doing that, I was posture straight up. My chest was out. And I started doing what's called the power pose. I told you I'd tell you about that. There's a TED Talk on this, and some will debate the science, but I believe it works. That if you hold a power pose, it actually increases your positiveness. And the science behind it is very interesting. So there's several kinds. The one I chose to do, it's in my CBT, Cognitive Behavior Skills notebook, is what's called the Wonder Woman, or the hero pose. And well, because if you know my show here, it's based on the hero's journey narrative. So I'm thinking, okay. So what it is I just want you to picture this. If you want to do it with me now, stand up tall. So I'm going to do it. Stand up tall, good posture, chest out, chin up, right? Look straight out. Now take your hands, both right and left, and put them in a fist. And now put them on the side of your hips, one on each side, as if you're standing there in a power pose, and feet spread apart. And now keep that pose, chin up, head out. Just keep that pose. You don't have to say anything, and think positive thoughts for 2 minutes. First of all, some people, they do for a minute and they want to sit down because it's not something you normally do. So picture me at the backstage all mic'd up. I'm now walking from that vast, dark, black area with all the rigging around, straight around the corner. And now I'm standing, I turn right and I see, what do I see? Oh my God, I see the lights of the stage. I see the TEDx Bear Creek Park sign just some 30 feet in front of me. I see the curtain. I'm looking through the entryway to the stage from the left. And of course, it's maybe 3 feet across. That's the entryway. And I see a bit of a curtain hanging on my left, a black curtain. And I don't see Peter, who's the speaker, because he's standing on the red dot, which it wasn't in sight. It's a couple feet to the left. But I see everything and I hear the crowd. And then they give him an ovation. I'm thinking like, oh my God, that fired me up. So as I got out of my power pose and he finished, I remember when Noel Bentley, who was the MC, introduced me, we were trained that when you get introduced, wait. And then when he says, please welcome to the stage, Mr. Tom Dutta, I walked out, and you don't look at the crowd. You don't do any ham things like, hey, how's it going? Or you trip up. You walk straight to the MC, and we rehearsed giving each other a hug. So I gave him a hug. And then I turned and I looked at the audience for the first time, seeing 1,000 people there, and it was dead silent after they applauded and welcomed me to the stage. You don't say thank you or get into conversation. What professional speakers are trained to do, what I was trained to do, is smile. This is your one moment. Smile, because your talk might be serious, but smile. Scan the audience. This is a lower bowl and upper bowl. I looked left, middle, right. I looked up and just looked around, and I had this big smile on my face. I literally couldn't look down because then it looks like you don't know what you're doing. So I had to find my way to the middle of the red circle. Now, TED Talks are done on a red dot. It's a metaphor. That's the place of focus, a single idea. It's brilliant, but you're standing on this confined space. I think the circumference of that dot is 9 feet. And throughout your talk, you don't look down. You have to stay in the middle. And we have to practice this. Some people wander off. It looks terrible on camera. And then you have to perform your talk where your words and your body match. So, for example, if I start saying something and that I'm saying words that are positive, and yet my head is going side to side as if negative, it's wrong. So this is all the months of rehearsal and all performing on a red dot where you can't really use your legs to speak. And I'm used to speaking wandering around a stage, behind a podium as a CEO type guy. You have to literally become an actor and use your upper body and your voice and project multiple. If you have a narrative like mine talk that had several characters, you have to tell the stories. So I literally trained to have a narrative voice, a storyteller voice, my voice. It was crazy. And a couple of the voices were women. You can imagine that. If you saw my talk, you would remember it. And my talk had some humor in it, so you had to know how to do that and be prepared for the audience interrupting you with applause and not locking up. In some rehearsals in the past, I blanked out. They teach us when you draw a blank, you stand in the same spot and look at the audience, and they might think you're reflecting. You don't say sorry, you don't move. And then it will come to you. You have to have huge faith that you will find your place. It is scary, everybody. In Dry Run, when we did it at Bell Center, I literally thought I was lost. And the pregnant pause seemed like it's forever for the speaker, but the audience doesn't see it that way. They just see you as pondering. And well, when you find your way, you start talking again. But the reason why you have to stay still is because when they edit the video together, if you've moved even a foot, it's going to be like you've said something, and then they'll edit out all the pause, and then now you're talking again, but you're over there. Like, where'd Tom go? What happened? And it doesn't look natural. And they say some speakers, they don't train properly for that, and they can never fix the video. So we have all that. So here I am now. I'm standing. The lights are on me. I'm lit up on the stage. The audience is quiet. And I smiled, and then I looked ahead, and then all of a sudden my smile disappeared. And I went into my first stance of just standing on the dot, my feet equally apart, my arms hanging down from both sides, my chest out. And I started my talk. And I put my hands in front of me like I was holding a steering wheel. And my talk starts. My car, it's parked at the side of this long stretch of highway. I'm like a zombie in my navy blue suit and tie, a well-dressed corporate zombie. Snow crushing beneath my feet, briefcase hanging off my arm. There's a clearing in the forest. I lay down on my back and gently place my briefcase on my chest. I close my eyes, and then I'm just going to stop there and tease you. But I was acting out a story, the opening part of my talk, and it was a dramatic story. And practicing that story, it was based on a real life experience I had. Practicing that story and doing it now in front of 1,000 people where you can't see your body. There's no mirror, just surreal. And you wonder, now I'm just going to tell you that throughout the talk, I literally was probably on adrenaline, and I don't even remember parts of it. Seriously, I remember the opening. I remember I was avoiding looking at certain people in the audience because I might get emotional. My wife was in the first 10 rows, and they teach you as a professional speaker. There's many myths about pick a spot on the back wall. No. And you don't want to be moving your head and be a moving target because the audience gets distracted. You literally talk to the first 10 rows. And if you're making a confession, which I did in part of my talk, saying something to somebody, you lean into one person and talk to them, and the audience feels you're talking to the whole audience. It's pretty amazing. And all these other skills, which I won't get into. But as I'm doing that talk, I just, I remember making the sign of the cross as I walked out there. I'm just saying to myself, it's go time. Let's do it. The talk of a lifetime. Let's go, Tom. You're going to nail it. You're ready. And there I was. And the thing I'm so blown away by is a couple times the lights were in my eyes, and I really had to stay focused. Many of you know I had a slip and fall, and I was dealing with depression and issues with my eyes not focusing. My short-term memory was bad. I mean, all this stuff at this moment in time, I'm now in the hands of the Lord, and I'm standing there, and I'm either going to kill it or I'm going to not do it well. And I had no negative thoughts, and I just went. And at the end, I can only tell you that when I finished the end of my talk, and you slow it down and you use your words deliberately, and I finished the end of my talk, I went up like a crescendo really fast, started increasing the words and the volume of my voice. Throughout your talk, you have to use your voice, highs and lows and pauses, pregnant pauses. You have to actually learn to lift words off your page. So when I say snow is crushing, you literally are enunciating using both lips. And we never talk that way normally. I will say crushing. And so all these things at the end, I'm slowing it down, slowing it down, slowing it down, slowing it down. And then I look out in the audience and I'm quiet for 2 seconds. I say thank you. And what happened next almost brought tears. I had to fight back. The whole audience stood up and I got a standing ovation. And one of the things that we were also told is when you get a standing O, do not walk off the stage in the middle of it. And when speakers do that, they're just generally stage fright or they're just nerves. You insult your audience. So I'm going like, okay, I like this. I love this. And then part of me is saying, now stop, because I want to get off the stage. But I remember, I don't know how long it was, but I stood out there and I touched my chest with my hand as if to say thanks. I think like an actor might do sometimes, I blew a double kiss to everybody. And I remember looking around and just being surreal that these people, these amazing people, were honoring my talk, my idea with a standing ovation. And I want to say to everybody as I wrap up the podcast who was there that that's the biggest honor you can give to a speaker. And we Canadians are polite. Sometimes we don't think we should be standing up and showing our emotion, but you can, because speakers, if they're good, don't do it if it's not good. I've been to plays and things where people at the end, all the actors come out, it was a killer. And people, some are standing up, some are sitting down. When they videotape these TED Talks, all of that applause in the audience, that's all captured on our speaker reel. And the speaker reel is our video that we can put on our website, or we'll be with the TED site, and we'll be able to give it to people who want to come and have us talk and teach. It's big. So thank you so much, everybody, for that incredible applause at the end. I want to just tell you that after that, I went back down. We were told to go back down to the green room, and we weren't allowed to go sit in the audience until the first set was over, the first 4. I didn't even know what to think. I don't even know what I thought. I just remember saying it's over. And I wanted to do more. I mean, I enjoyed it, the experience, the adrenaline. And so I went back down, and then at the break came up, and for those who don't know, they sat the speakers in row V, which was the back row of the orchestra, the bottom bowl. And so I'm sitting up there, and I can literally look down and see the heads of my wife and friends and people I'd known. And I'm looking and watching the rest of the production. At the breaks, we as speakers were told to quietly escape and go to what was called the book table. They made announcements for guests to come out and meet us and talk to us. Some of us had books to sell. And that's where I was for most of the break. So I was working through the whole production on the breaks, even lunch, quick lunch, get out there. You're serving. When you're a speaker, you serve your audience. You're there. You know, not all speakers do it, but you want to go out and you want to shake hands and meet people and touch them in their hearts. And I was starting to get blown away by people came up to me and they just were saying things to me that, you know, I'm at this point in my life now where I accept praise. They were praising me and so many nice comments. And what blew me away was so many people came up to me and said, your story's my story. And I became emotional. And there was one man who came up and I recognized him, but I hadn't seen him since I was a child. And he was my dad's sponsor into AA. And my dad died of a heart attack, but he was 22 years in Alcoholics Anonymous. Tom Miller came to my talk and he came up to me and I hadn't seen him since I was a boy. And I got emotional. I said, God. And he said, you did such a good job. And I gave him my book because I said I wrote it. And the first part of it's about my dad and I. And he was asking me questions. And I just was like, I was just in a state of gratitude. There were other people who came up. Another fellow said, I knew your dad. He was from AA as well. There were people from the federal government and from organizations that were connected to, you know, communities that cared about my topic, which was mental health and leadership, coming up to me and saying, here's my card. Do you do speaking to others? And so the floodgates start opening. You know, you don't think about it. You just say, I'm here to help in any way, and you just gather. But all that was going on through the day, and it was just surreal to even be grounded, and the adrenaline carries you for the event. At the end of the event, they brought us all up on stage and they gave us acknowledgement to the crowd, but we also, as speakers, were able to give an acknowledgement to the crowd, which to me was a favorite part. And they brought everybody on stage, all the organizers, coaches, and nobody left the house. People stayed. It was this magical day. And when we learn new things, the brain has this chemical reaction that creates almost a sense of euphoria. We want to keep learning, and we want to come back, and we don't want to leave. It's almost like a rush. And that's what happened at this event, and the buzz and the vibes. People will come back. February 27th, 2021 is the next one. And they made a big announcement about October 10th, 2020, which is this year. It's called, Climate's Day of Destiny, I think. And it's a partnership between TED globally and YouTube, which is huge. And on 10/10/2020, October 10th, 2020, in every local community where there's TED events, they'll be doing an event all connected to stages around the world. And so every country, there's 4,000 TEDx stages. You might not know that in every country, including the big TED event that happens here in Vancouver. On that day, they'll all be doing things to talk about climate change and saving the planet. Pretty amazing. So I expect that you'll hear more. If you want to know more about this organization, our stage, it's tedxbearcreekpark.ca or tedxbcp.ca. Get your name on the mailing list to catch up, keep up to date. When the talks are being produced now, all pictures and all those things, they're putting them together. TED has criteria, so they're going to want to see them. They have the opportunity to change titles. My title is called How Leaders Can Lift the Stigma of Mental Health. All of that stuff is yet to be finalized 4 to 6 weeks before I see the video. So I'll just tell you that I do not know what I look like, what I sounded like, because when you're projecting out, you can't see yourself. And I know that when I sit down and I see and relive that talk, especially the audience participation, I'm probably going to be a basket case and just break up with emotion. But I can't wait to see it. A lot of friends are saying, Tom, when can we see it? Because they didn't see it. And I'm going like, well, I'm waiting too, but I will get that out. My plan now is to get that up onto YouTube. They do it for you, and then to blast social media, and then start a journey. I'm on a mission to change the world with this idea. I have some things I'll be launching. I'm excited. I've been asked to go down to New York City to help launch a major global conference called Make a Difference. It's a sister conference to the one in the UK every year. And they have a vision to around the world to lift the stigma of mental health. And they called me and wanted me to speak, trying to finalize and see what that entails. But I plan to do a lot more. A couple more things I want to tell you, because I've been well over an hour here rambling. If you're here still with me, thank you. If you dropped off, thank you. You can always come back and listen to this in multiple pieces. I was going to produce it and break it up, but I'm not going to. This will be a legacy talk. I'll probably share it with people who are interested in doing TED Talks so they know what they're in for. When I signed up for this, they said it's got to be your top priority. And we don't get paid for it, but the world-class coaching and the personal growth to get onto a stage, to be a speaker, and to be able to spread the word that shifts thinking is well worth the effort. And many people say they come to one of these events and they'll be TEDxers for life. I hope that everybody will come back to the next one. So I plan to start doing some meaningful things. The other piece that I'm excited about, for many of you who don't know or do know, my book is being made into a major motion picture. And 2021, I'm expecting might be the premiere. We'll do a local event where I am, probably rent a theater and invite a bunch of VIP people close to me who have cared about my journey. So stay connected to me on social media. I want you to find my podcast, The Quiet Warrior Show, this one now you're listening to, and subscribe to it on your favorite channel and like it and tell people about it. And please go on social media and post this interview. You'll get it. You can share it, but help me by getting the word out. And I make no bones about this. I've said a lot of things on this podcast that many speakers wouldn't say. And I've taken you into the dirty little secrets in the background and the fears and the triumphs of doing something like this. It's who I am. You get what you get. And others wouldn't do it, but I do it for a reason, because I love the audience, my listeners. And I want you to know authentically in the journey. I wanted you to be in that with me. And so now we're going to wrap up about an hour and 13 minutes here on my clock by saying thank you for coming on this journey with me. I will more than likely do another TED Talk in the United States. I'm targeting the Seattle stage And there's a reason for that. I have a follow-up talk that's an idea that builds on this one. So stay tuned to that. And everybody, have an awesome day and never give up and dream anything is possible, because everything you need is within you now to do anything you want. A guy like me, who came from being broken into my own greatness, can do something like this, which is hard to do, then if I can do it, you can do anything you want. Thanks and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca